What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Under Construction with KT. Happy Memorial Day. Today is a day that we get to honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice on the field of battle to ensure our freedom. And the fact that we get to celebrate days like today is a beautiful thing. And while you're out there enjoying your family and the weather, just please take a moment and remember what this day is all about and why we get to enjoy it. But uh, with that being said, today is another solo episode, which is kind of not really part of the design, but this is taking shape on its own, which is really cool. Under construction, plans get changed all the time. So it's really cool how it's taking shape, though, and I'll kind of dive into that a little bit. But today's episode, we're going to talk a little bit about a pretty powerful human-centered coaching tool, and I refer to it as acknowledge, absolve, and redirect. And I'll tell you kind of how this came, how I learned about this once we get going. But it's really a conversation model that will help you with some of those sometimes crucial conversations, or the conversations that aren't always about good things in your leadership roles, but it can really apply to your personal life, professional life, relationships, family, all of that. But it's a way to without sugarcoating come from a leadership standpoint that is really powered with a conversation that's powered by emotional intelligence. Um, and it's designed to correct or guide or hold accountability before or without really shutting someone down. Because a lot of times those conversations can result in people shutting down or peeling back a little bit further. So, but before we get into all of that really cool stuff, I wanted to take a few minutes and thank a really good friend of mine who offers unapologetic and really just authentic, real feedback to me. Someone that I've known for a very long time, and I lean into for things like this, and someone that's actually has some experience on podcasts, and and I'm not just talking about giving me feedback on this specific aspect of my life. He's someone I lean into for a lot of things, and we've kind of disconnected over the last several years, but we have reconnected, and hopefully someday he will appear here with me, and you guys can get to experience him. But um, I just wanted to give him a shout out. He's someone I naturally lean into. So thank you, Paul Spinella. You've given me a lot of feedback on my current episodes and what's going on with the podcast. And I wanted to just cast a light on you for that and plug your number one best-selling book. Yes, he has a book out. He's a number one bestseller. You can get his book on Amazon right now. It's called, the title is The Woman in Apartment 2. And again, Paul's someone that's just very real. Does when I ask him for feedback, he realizes that to me that feedback is more important, and that growth from the feedback is more important than my ego, and he delivers that. So and if you get his book and you read it, you will get a glimpse of what I'm talking about. Also wanted to say thank you for my first guest on my first episode with someone else, Jay. She delivered, and I appreciate everything you did, everything you talked about. And if you guys were wondering if when she was talking about her travel, if all of that's true, it absolutely is, because we had some people view the episode we had at least one person from Greece and one person from Italy. So that was really cool to see. So she's taking the show into international waters, which is cool. And she also which was kind of cool to see. She with the first episode, if you haven't seen it, go back and just listen to it, because the audio is awful. I'm sorry, the video is awful, and you'll probably get epilepsy from watching it. It was so choppy. But with that episode, it was I got most of the population was male, and after Jay's episode it's kind of leveled out, which was cool, but I guess it makes sense that females would be would want to hear about some badass chick that travels a lot and takes charge of her life versus some fleas trying to jump out of a jar. But either way, that's where we're at. So thank you, Paul, for all your feedback and your friendship and your coaching, all for the last, I don't know how many years, and then Jay for showing up and delivering last week, and really putting together some good content and some really good messages. But um, as we kind of start into this episode, I think it's important to talk about how the podcast is taking shape and what it's kind of transforming into. Because when I initially started, the first episode was really just I wanted to get something out there. I wanted to start the ball rolling. So once you kind of put yourself out there, you gotta then it takes a little bit more. You have a little bit more skin in the game, and it just came when I was talking about the law of the lid. It really applied to something in my life that kind of that I have under construction right now and that I was working on, and I was planning on doing a second episode with a guest, and then that kind of got derailed because of technical issues. Sorry, Ryan, and probably more sorry to his wife Alyssa for stealing him twice now for multiple hours and in the evening and not really getting anything down. But I promise next time, if there's a next time, if you allow me to have him again, we will get some content filmed and a great podcast to share. So that happened, and then Jay came on as my first guest, which absolutely made sense. And then I found myself, early this week not having much to edit or an episode to actually push out. And part of the things I was working on from the first episode was, removing those lids, and a big lid for me is procrastination, or and I wanted to make sure when I said that I wanted to push out, or my goal is to push out an episode every week. Then this, when I don't have other content, this is what happens. But it's kind of transforming into a nice little structure, because when people start asking me like, "Oh, what's your podcast about?" I would say, it's just I want to have real people on talking about real shit, and that have a message, or that have can have been under construction, or an aspect of their life that they've been working on, or they have worked on, and kind of like push through that, and what the final product was, or something they're working on in the future. But there was really no structure, and it's kind of transforming. And this episode here is going to help. That is, with the first episode being about the law of the lid, I was able to tie that to something I'm working on. And with this episode, I was worried about that. I said, I didn't really know. I knew there was some content out there that I wanted to push out and be really a really cool message. But um, with the theme, or the theme of under construction, I think it just makes sense for it to be something that I'm working on as well. So this content almost was, I it took me a minute to connect the dots, and I I got a call, or I was reached out to by someone, and they asked me um about their situation. They're getting ready to get promoted, and they're getting promoted from within their team, and now they're essentially going from buddy to boss, if you will, or individual contributor to leader. And they're going to have to manage and lead people that they've worked alongside, and built bonds with, in a different capacity. So it's a really it's tricky water to navigate. And this person reached out to me and said, "Hey, what do I need to look out for?" And this is right in my wheelhouse. So I was like, "Ooh." I And immediately a couple things came to mind. One, the book, The First 90 Days. I was given this advice a long time ago by a leader of mine, and she said, anytime she would take on a new role, no matter if it was a promotion within, new whatever it was, she would always revert back to this book because it gives you a solid framework on how to get up to speed and kind of take the reins with a very structured 90-day approach. And I've done that ever since, and it definitely helps. It helps you kind of get your mindset in the right spot for it. But um, so I recommended that book, and then one of the big things I always tell people like this is you really have to, or you're going to want to come out of the gate probably really strong and set some really clear expectations. And I thought back to when I took on a new role in a company, and the CEO of the company at the time asked me a question. They said, if right now you're ever all of the people that will be in your charge were sitting in an auditorium, and you walked out on the stage, who would they see? And what would they see? How do you want to show up? So I said, that's important. Like, number one, like, how do you want to show up? And you got to remember, these people have seen you before. They've seen under the covers. They know how you show up. So you got to take that into consideration. Secondly, what do you're going to have a list of all of these things that you're going to kind of want to change, and I encourage them to write that list out. Put as many things on it as possible, and then really start to prioritize them. And you can, something I do is I bucket them. People, these are things that are in reference to my people. These are things I want to change in reference to maybe our process, and these are some of the things I want to change in new expectations, things like that. So bucket them, prioritize them, and take that really slowly. So we'll get into that a little bit, but so that was kind of the message. And then it brought me back to this leadership summit I attended in the, I don't know where we were, Smoky Mountains or something, Tennessee. I don't know. We're in the mountains in this cabin. We just knew we had to watch out for bears and stuff, but we used to do these, and it was really cool. We'd bring leaders from throughout the country in, and we would talk about the business, work on the business, and 2 or 3 days, and it was always a great way to mix business and kind of build in the culture. So anyway, we were at one of these summits, and a speaker came in, which all the credit to him for this. I mean, I don't know what the rules are. I don't know if I can say their name or what, but whatever. All the credit to them, regardless. If anyone wants to know their name, I'll tell them. But um, they they were talking about and it's a very, very basic and early on coaching conversation model that fits perfect, especially in a situation where with this particular person was taking over a team that they had already been a member on. And it talks about acknowledge, absolve, and redirect. So how you use that framework to guide a leadership conversation, a coaching conversation. And some of these conversations aren't always the most fun. They can be crucial and critical in push in you moving that team forward. So they're absolutely important to have. And so this is where I kind of landed with this episode. And I was thinking back to myself, like, all right, how do I connect that to something that I'm actively working on? I'm not currently coaching in a traditional role, or that I'm coaching team members, or I don't have team members that report up to me. And I looked at the model, and it's really just boils down to communication, right? This is a communication framework. It's a conversation tool, and that kind of really clicked then, because that's been showing up a lot recently, and where I am falling short, or where I need to work, where I need to pay attention is my communication with people I care about, that in my life, my kids, my friends, family, people that are important to me. And communication is absolutely crucial. So in that, I mean, we've never, I highly doubt there's ever been, or if you look, maybe, but if you look at, if you polled 100 divorced people, I guarantee that the most of the 99 out of them at least would probably say our communication was great, but we just had this problem, or we could communicate like I've never seen before, but this was the issue. It normally, a lot of conflicts boil back to poor communication or lack of communication, or communication that comes too late. And this is a way where you can make sure you stay ahead of that, especially in your conversations with your employees. And if you're a leader, you should care about your employees. So when I'm talking about people you care about, and if you're in a leadership position, the people that are in your charge should fall into that bucket as well. So that's kind of how this happened. So um, getting into it, acknowledge, absolve, redirect. This is again just framework to have a conversation with an employee when you're trying to redirect behavior, or even hold some accountability, or help guide someone. And the absolute first step in finding solutions is acknowledgement. Acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the situation. It allows the person that you're having the conversation with to feel seen and heard. And that's important. People need to feel seen and heard before they're going to want to recognize, or going to want to make a change. So when you think about it, like in terms of professional or work, something like being late or missing deadlines, those things need to be addressed. Otherwise, you're going to continue to get the same results, or same behaviors. And when you're acknowledging something like being late, this is the this scenario I'll use throughout, because this is kind of what I was talking to him about, and what one of the things that he wanted to address immediately. So was being late. Meeting starts at 9 o'clock. Um that's 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 the expectation. But the reality is it probably starts at 8:15, 8:20 every day. He was sharing with me, and multiple, does isn't always the same person, comes in late, and we just let that happen, and it derails the rest of the day. If one thing starts late, it's going to finish late. It's going to make the next thing start late. So when addressing that, it's just something like that. My guidance to him, this is something I would do as a group, redefining the expectations there. And make sure you're, with acknowledging, we're finding a solution, but we're not validating excuses, we're validating emotions. So it would sound something like, hey everybody, up until this point, our meetings have always been scheduled to start at 9. Um, this is the reality. They start late. Whatever your words are, and part of our jobs as leaders is to define reality. So they start late, which causes this problem. So we're recognizing the pain. This is where the problem is happening. Um, so that gives you an opportunity to kind of hear out and listen to why that's happening. There are going to be excuses like, oh, well, we always start late on anyway, so why do I have to be here at 9 when we're not going to start till 9:20, this and that. You need to validate the frustration that's involved with that, because for a person like me especially, I like to be on time. I get anxiety if I'm late. So if I'm showing up on time, but our meeting's not starting on time because other people aren't showing up that's going to frustrate me. So acknowledge the emotions, not the excuses, because now that could cause me. All right, I'm not going to show up till 9:20 because no one else. We're not going to start till then anyway. So that's my excuse. No one else shows up till then, but my emotion is I'm frustrated because no one else is showing up till then. So kind of use that. Make sure you're coming from that point of view. And then once you're able to recognize the pain, which is the acknowledgement part of the conversation, you can start to absolve. the or release the inner weight so we can move forward, right? So people struggle to grow while they're stuck in guilt or shame, and when you do something wrong, whether you're at work or it's in your personal life, you have a little bit of that. Whether even if it is showing up late, you feel a little bit. You should. If you don't, then who knows? But if you do, that's a normal human thing to feel, and we don't grow well in that soil. Essentially, guilt or shame is not a good recipe for growth. So the goal here is to release that inner weight so everyone can push forward, and we can redirect and our energies go in the right direction. um so this doesn't mean we ignore accountability. It means that we're separating the mistake from the emotion, really. So in acknowledge, we're validating the emotion and not the excuse, and in absolve, we're really separating the mistake from the emotion. So it sounds like something. So yeah, same scenario. Everyone's late. Um, it's you can literally say, because in his situation specifically, he was one of them. He was part of the problem. And acknowledge, talking about that when you're in the absolve, section of this model, is really like, I've been late before. We didn't, the structure wasn't there. We always started meetings on late. And it's nobody's fault, but that's where we are, and going forward, and you start to move into the redirecting the energy. But you want to say, all right, we've all come in late at some point or another. We've all had to deal with that. We've all had that stress. We've all caused that stress to everyone else. So we gotta recognize that, and we gotta absolve ourselves for any lateness in the past. Let's eliminate the guilt, eliminate the shame. That's nobody's in trouble for that. Let's move forward, right? But going forward, as you get to the redirect stage, this is where the shift happens, and this is the growth lever, right? So it's about saying you're still in the game, right? We're all still in the game. Now let's play smarter. Let's when you're redirecting behavior, it's a great time to establish or reestablish expectations. And in his case, this is new. There was probably some expectations set, but when there's a leadership change, there's probably, unless it's someone that gets promoted, this is not the case. There's some behavior, there's some messiness going on. So you kind of got to reestablish what's important to you. And as we're talking about this, it's really important to do that slowly. How do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? um, if you start setting too many expectations, you're gonna really drain your bandwidth as a leader, because there's all of these things that you now have to be responsible for, and you have to be accountable for, and you have to show up for. So doing that slowly, which we can talk about a little bit more, but it's a great time to reestablish expectations. Lay out your commitments as a leader. You commit in this specific situation. The meeting will start at 9. I'll commit. I will be here. I will be here ready for it. But the expectation is that you guys are too. And you now, as the leader, that's something you have to take ownership of. You have to be there at that time every day, because the one time you're not, that eliminates everything. That gives the open door to kind of throw those expectations out the window. um but it's a good time to lay out your commitments. It's a good time to ask open-ended, ownership driven questions like, all right, how do we make sure this doesn't happen going forward? Here's the things I'm going to commit to. What are some of the things that you can commit to, and or what else do you need from me to make sure that you guys can all commit to this? So you're figuring it out together, and you're all committing. Everyone's having some ownership to the redirection of the energy. And that's how you start to build a culture and a team, and that's how you start to bring people together. We have a common goal now of making sure our meetings start at 9 o'clock, and it's important because of this. And now I don't want to be the one that lets that team down, and lets that my leader down, especially if I respect them. And not everyone's going to respect you, especially coming from that situation. You're going to have to earn some respect. You're probably going to have some detractors, some people that aren't in your camp, so to speak, and maybe but you got to push through that as a leader. That's where the rubber meets the road in leadership. But we want to make sure that that we're redirecting the energy, right? And we're getting to a solution. So, and part of our job, all of this entire conversation really does it helps us define reality, and that's part of our job as leaders and any leader. You have to make sure that the reality is defined, and setting expectations is super delicate as well. Before you can ever have this conversation, you're going to have to decide on what you're willing to commit to. Starting slow, like I said, don't overcommit. You probably have this whole list of things, and prioritizing them, like I was talking about earlier. Start with the things that are most important, the 3 to 5 things that you want to change as the most important. Start with those, because then you have the capacity to make sure you're committed to those as well as the leader, and you're committed to what it takes to make sure those expectations are met as a leader. You can't change everything at once. Don't try to. You need to start with the most important things, and then as those things become habits, you can start with the other things. But prioritizing important, because if everything on your list is important, then nothing's important, and that just essentially means you can't focus on everything at once. Keep it small, and if you don't if you don't do this, you're going to overcommit. You're going to let things fall by the wayside. You're probably going to not hold a level of accountability to certain things that you would like to, and then that goes in back into the same thing. Probably one of the things that stuck with me the most during this session was, he said to us, "If you don't address it, you bless it." And I'll say that again. It's super important. If you don't address it, you bless it. And that rings true in any aspect of life. If there's something that's a problem, or that's something that's not meeting your expectations, if you don't address that, then you're going to continue to get that same result. You're going to continue to get that same behavior. You're going to continue to feel that same way. So if you're going to set expectations and you're going to set guidelines, then you need to be committed to being able to hold the level of accountability that's going to require to turn those new rules into reality, and into kind of more of just habits versus a rule. It'll become more of a surprise that someone does show up late than people not. So, and that's kind of what you want to get to, and you want to make that the exception, not the rule. So, and if everything's important, then nothing's important. So only set what you can commit to holding accountability to. So if you're in one of these conversations, you're not having that blow up moment where and unfortunately, a lot of the times these conversations come after someone hasn't met your expectations a couple times in a row, and you're kind of fed up with it, and it's the third time, fourth time, and you finally pull them in and say, "Hey, look, this is why is this going on? What is wrong?" You're super frustrated. Whereas if at the beginning, that first time, you didn't address it, so now you bless that behavior. So to them, what they're doing is within the structure, even though it's a guideline. If a guideline doesn't have accountability behind it, it does not exist. So that now is you didn't address that behavior, so that behavior's blessed. And then you end up having that conversation when it's too late. You blow up. There's no coming back. You can't even acknowledge, absolve, or redirect anything, because you're frustrated with them. They're frustrated with you, because there was no accountability, which that then creates a ton of anxiety throughout the if think about it, if you're showing up late to your job, and you don't know if you walk in, if you're going to get written up, if you're going to get greeted and say, "Hey, come on in, sit down, no worries," or if you're going to get locked out, or if what's going to happen. If you don't know what's going to happen, that whole drive there, you're going to be full of anxiety. You're not going to be focused on anything that's important, or to get ready for the day. So you're going to be full of anxiety leading up until the time you walk in that door and you figure out what the accountability is going to be. Is it going to be none, some, or all? We don't know. This way, you're going to know exactly what's going to happen. When you set expectations as a leader and you follow through on the accountability with those expectations, that in itself, even though people, look at it a different way, like accountability is bad. No, accountability is good. It's going to, if you're consistent and you're fair with it, you're going to relieve anxiety throughout your team, because they know what to expect when they kind of go outside the guardrails. If that makes sense, hopefully. So that's I wanted to make sure they looked out for that. And that's probably the most important part of it. You can't have this conversation twice. Essentially, you can, but it doesn't hold as much weight if you're doing it again. So when you first have this conversation, it's very important to you that you make sure you take note of what you're willing to commit to as a leader, or as that friend, or as that family member, that father, that son, whatever it is, that daughter, mother, anything. You got to kind of take note of where you're going to stand after the conversation's over as well. um so if you ever are, find yourself having any of these crucial conversations, just remember to, acknowledge the pain, absolve the shame or guilt, and then redirect the energy. If you do that properly, the result of that conversation is probably going to be a good one. Both of you are gonna walk away from that conversation, or you and your team are gonna walk away from that conversation in a better place, a better mindset, and kind of with a feeling of unity versus a feeling of disdain, or oftentimes you can create animosity with those conversations because they're just not done properly. As you're thinking about this again, I appreciate everyone for tuning in. This is something that showed up in my life, my communication, more so on the personal side, and how I've fallen short on that. And again, if you have this conversation too late, sometimes it's no longer even a conversation that can be had. And you don't want to get to that, especially with your loved ones, the people you care about. And you want to make sure that if there's something to be said, then you can, you know how to say it in a way that's not going to destroy someone's ego, or not even ego, just like it's kind of put them lower than maybe what they already were. You want to always build people up with these conversations. They should be geared around that, because if you're going into a conversation with anyone that you care about, and with the intentions of um of tearing them down, then I would hope that you would reconsider, and you would maybe look at a model like this to kind of figure out how you're gonna redirect energy versus just pouring into some negative, or not so good energy. But as you think about this, like, who in your life right now could use this conversation, or is there anything that you need to absolve and redirect yourself from? So, and if you took anything from this, please leave a comment. Let me know, or if there's a situation maybe that you would like to have this conversation with, but don't know where to start. Please let me know. DM me, comment, whatever it is. Again, as always, I appreciate your guys' support. I appreciate your feedback, and thanks for listening again. And just remember, everyone is under construction. Every day is an opportunity to build and grow, and that's what we're here to do. So get out there, kick some ass, have some fun, enjoy your Memorial Day, enjoy your families and loved ones, and I will talk to everyone soon. See you on the next episode.